Cynthia, I'm getting a high-pitched hum in the background. Does anybody else hear that?
No.
I do not.
Okay, must be my speakers then. All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for letting us know.
I hear it also.
I hear it as well. It's like it keeps going in and out. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, if we can all put ourselves on mute, except for the person who's speaking, that might help a little bit. So Marianne, we are streaming live to YouTube, so we're ready to begin whenever you are.
All right, I am ready. Good evening and welcome. I'm Marianne Horn, and I am the Community Outreach Strategist at MetroPlan Orlando, and I will be your host for this evening. Thank you for attending our virtual public meeting to discuss the Transportation Improvement Program, which is our 5-year work program for the 3-county region. We are glad to see you all here. It looks like we have about 47 people with us tonight, and that's great. We are conducting this meeting on Zoom, and it is accessible to the public via computer, tablet, or smartphone. Also, a recording can be accessed later on MetroPlan Orlando's YouTube channel, so you can rewatch portions, you can share it with friends. You will find links to the YouTube live stream and to the agenda for this meeting, and also to the draft copy of the Transportation Improvement Program itself. Those will be in the chat box, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For this meeting, we have a few guidelines that will help things flow more smoothly. Members of the public who want to ask a question can use the Q&A button on your toolbar to ask questions at any time throughout the program. We will answer the questions, as many of the questions as possible, during the question and answer period, which comes later in the agenda. So you will be able to also see questions that are asked by others, and you can upvote them. You can give them a thumbs up if you think that's a good topic and you'd like to hear it answered as well. So we will have the Q&A after our presentations, and then we will also set aside time for public comment, which is a separate thing in which you can share your thoughts with a 2-minute limit. We really appreciate your interest in transportation, and we would like to get a gauge of how you think it's going in Central Florida. I want to pose a question to you about how the transportation system meets your needs. You will see the question on your screen and some multiple choice answers. We're going to ask you a couple more questions like this. To answer, you make your selection on the screen and just click. So our first question is, we're talking about all types of travel: car, bus, rail, bicycle, pedestrians. How does Central Florida's transportation system serve our residents and visitors? Is it great? Is it pretty good? Is it average? Do you think it's poor? Or do you really think it's just failing, in which no one's needs are met? We'll give you a minute or two to study that question, think about it, make your selection, and then we'll see what you think. So we're waiting for a few more. A little more than half of you have answered. I'd like to encourage you to answer this if you will, because we want to see what you think. So how are we doing? Central Florida's transportation system. Well, it looks like most of you think we have an average performing transportation system. A few think it's pretty good. More than that, about 33% think it's poor. None of you think we're great. None of you think we're failing. Okay. So as this poll shows, we have some work to do. And tonight you'll get some insight into some of the ways that we are trying to make Central Florida's transportation system better. We have some very informative presentations lined up for you. As I mentioned earlier, you will have a chance to ask your own questions and share your thoughts. We're going to demonstrate a tool for you that is on our website. And this will help you find out ways that you can get your own information about projects that interest you. Our main presenter this evening will be Mr. Keith Caskey, who will give an overview of the Transportation Improvement Program and talk about some of our upcoming road projects. After Keith, Mr. Nick Lepp will tell us about projects that we call complete streets, and that means that the focus is on making the roads accessible to everyone. He will be followed by Mr. Mike Wilson, who will tell us about some trail projects coming to the region, as well as our safety action plan for cyclists and pedestrians. Then we'll hear from Mr. Eric Hill and Ms. Laura Bauk on a program that we call Transportation System Maintenance and Operations, some of our tech tools. And finally, Nick will return to talk to us about future transit projects. Now, we also have with us tonight several panelists from various agencies around the region. These are people who are our partners at MetroPlan Orlando, and we also will ask them from time to time to help us chime in on the Q&A and answer if it's in their area of expertise. Now, just a little bit about who we are and what our role is in Central Florida transportation. Some of you know, but some of you may not be so familiar. MetroPlan Orlando is the metropolitan planning organization for Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. We are a team of transportation planners, communications, and finance professionals. We coordinate with elected officials and transportation industry experts and the community, that's you, to shape a system that offers travel options. We set priorities. We determine how federal and state transportation dollars are spent in the three-county region. Before I turn it over to Keith to tell you more about one of the Transportation Improvement Program's aspects, here's a short video on how it works.
Have you ever wondered how transportation projects come to life? All projects in our 20-year plan get put on a waiting list for funding called the Prioritized Project List. It can take years or even decades to get out of the gate. Major transportation projects have big price tags. Funding these projects can be complicated and usually involves a combination of federal, state, and local money. We work on a project in phases. Each phase appears in our 5-year plan as it's funded, and this is great news. Once a project appears in the Transportation Improvement Program, it's making progress. Let's take a look at 2 types of projects: major roads, like state highway projects, and big public transportation projects, like bus rapid transit or rail. Both types begin on a similar path. First, we decide what kind of project will meet the identified need. Next, an in-depth planning study is done to look at all the available options for how the road will be built or what type of transit technology will be used. The public has opportunities to provide input, and environmental impacts are also considered. At the end of this phase, one option is chosen. After this, road projects and public transportation projects go in different directions. A road gets designed, any necessary right-of-way gets acquired, and then construction can begin. These phases often take years. For a big public transportation project needing money from the U.S. government, the Federal Transit Administration must grant permission to begin the first phase, project development. After that, a public transportation project can move to the next phase, final design. Then, it's on to construction and operation. Want to learn more about Central Florida projects? Take a look at our 5-year Transportation Improvement Program.
Okay, and that video is on our website all the time under the section for the TIP. So if you need to look back at that again, it's there for you. But right now, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Keith Caskey.
Okay, well, good evening. Just wanted to start off by, as a follow-up to the video, just to give a quick summary of the TIP for those that might not be familiar with this process. And the TIP is one of the main documents that we as an MPO are required to produce based on federal and state legislation. And the purpose of the TIP is to identify all the transportation projects that are funded within our region over the next 5 years with federal or state funds. So any federal or state funded transportation project has to be included within our TIP. We have the option to include locally funded projects for information purposes, even though those are not required. And so we do include projects from our 3 counties and some of our cities, since those are important projects as well. And then the TIP is updated on an annual basis. So we'll be back about this time next year with a review of another new TIP. Now this slide shows the amount of federal and state funds that are programmed over the 5 years of the TIP. And these are split out based on the main categories of projects in the TIP document. And all these federal and state funded projects have to be approved by our MetroPlan Orlando board to be included in the TIP in order for the project to move forward and be implemented. And you can see down at the bottom, this amounts to a total of almost $3.7 billion worth of projects. And I'll just quickly go through these different categories. At the top, the highway projects are those projects on state roads like State Road 50 or State Road 436, US 1792, and so on. And they also include the projects on I-4. Then the turnpike projects, of course, are toll roads that are operated by Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. Then the third category down there are the what we call TSMO projects, which are Transportation System Management and Operations projects. And these tend to be lower cost projects that help improve safety and traffic flow. And so they can include projects like minor intersection improvements, installing individual traffic signals, or putting in area-wide computerized traffic signal systems, along with other technology improvements. Then we have the bicycle pedestrian projects. Those can include bike trails as well as bike lanes and sidewalks along roadways. Then the transit projects primarily include fixed route bus service as well as other service operated by links. And we will be hearing more about the TSMO bike ped and transit projects later on in the presentation. Then commuter rail in this region, of course, would mainly include the SunRail projects. And then finally, we have the aviation projects, and those are projects on the 4 airports within our region that receive federal and state funds. And all of these different categories of projects represent the different transportation modes that interact with each other within the overall transportation system. Okay, the process of developing this new TIP actually started last year when we put together our fiscal year 2025 to 2040 prioritized project list. And the prioritized project list is another document that we update every year. And we like to call it a bridge document because it links our long-range transportation plan, which has a target year of 2040, with the 5-year TIP. So it kind of fills in the gap between those 2 documents. And this includes a list of projects that were either completely unfunded or had unfunded phases in FDOT's 5-year work program and our TIP as of last year. And this includes a list of highway projects, also a list of TSMO projects. Then we have bicycle pedestrian projects and transit projects. And each of these categories are ranked by priority as candidates for funding in the next TIP. And this was used by the Florida Department of Transportation to develop their fiscal year 2021 to 2025 tentative 5-year work program. And then we use the work program to put together this new TIP. Now, this slide shows the categories of highway projects in last year's prioritized project list. The first category on there are the National Highway System projects. And these are major capacity improvements to I-4. So these are mainly the beyond the ultimate improvements. And I'm not going to be going through the I-4 projects this evening, but I'm sure you all are familiar with the I-4 ultimate project that's been under construction for the last 5 years. And the Beyond the Ultimate improvements will expand that out throughout our 3-county region. And once this project is completed, it will comprise 6 general use lanes, 4 managed toll lanes, as well as improving all the major interchanges. Then the next category is the state roadway projects. And this is a mixture of different types of projects on roads on the state road system. Now, some of these are widening or capacity projects where a 2-lane road will be widened to 4 lanes, or 4 lanes widened to 6 lanes, and so on. But most of these are non-capacity, what we call context-sensitive or complete streets projects, which are designed to help improve traffic flow and improve access on existing roads without adding lanes. So they can include a combination of different types of improvements, like minor intersection improvements, putting in bicycle pedestrian facilities, bus pull-offs, and things of that nature. And then the third category, the multimodal system roadway and complete streets projects, is also a mixture of different types of projects, but that's on roads that are off the state road system. And I'm going to start off by going over just a few of the major capacity projects on state roadways. And I wanted to start off by going over the 4 basic phases of a major capacity highway project. So again, this could either be the construction of a new roadway, adding lanes to an existing roadway, or it could be putting in a grade separated flyover interchange. And the first phase listed on there is what's called the PD&E study, which is the Project Development and Environment Study. And this involves looking at the social and environmental impacts of a major capacity road project and coming up with several different alternatives based on those impacts, and then eventually narrowing those down to a single preferred alternative. After that comes the final design, which determines where exactly where everything will go. Then the next step will be acquiring the right-of-way, and of course the final phase is the actual construction of the project. And as you can see, looking on the chart there, each of these phases can take an average of about 2 years to complete, and sometimes longer than that, depending on the project. So this is a fairly lengthy process from start to finish. And I wanted to go over 3 major capacity projects on state highways that are currently funded in our new TIP. And we have 1 project for each of our 3 counties. So for Orange County, the project we have is the 6th laning of State Road 50 from Chuluota Road to State Road 520, which is in East Orange County. And some of you may be aware that this project had been proposed by Florida's Turnpike Enterprise as to be part of the Colonial Parkway project, which would have been a limited access freeway facility in the State Road 50 corridor. But after the PD&E for that project was completed, it was found that, based on the cost estimates and revenue projections, that the Colonial Parkway project is just not cost feasible. So so this is now just a regular at-grade 6-laning project that's funded for construction in fiscal year 2025. Then in Osceola County, we have the 6th laning of John Young Parkway from Pleasant Hill Road to Portage Street, which will include a grade separated interchange at John Young Parkway and Pleasant Hill Road. Now that project is still partially funded through right-of-way, so it's not fully funded yet. But there is an interim intersection improvement, which is called a quad road project at the intersection of John Young and Pleasant Hill Road, which will help divert traffic away from that intersection. And that's funded for construction also in fiscal year 2025. And then a major capacity project in Seminole County that's currently funded in the TIP is the 4-laning of State Road 426, County Road 419 from Pine Avenue to Avenue B in Oviedo. And that project is funded for construction in fiscal year 2021. So that should be getting started in the fairly near future. And as you all know, we have a lot of toll road facilities within our region. And there are a number of major capacity toll road projects that are either underway or funded for construction within the next several years. And we're not going to be going through the toll road projects this evening, but as Mary Ann mentioned earlier, we do have staff available from Florida's Turnpike Enterprise and also Central Florida Expressway Authority in case anyone has any questions or concerns about any of their projects. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nick Lepp, and Nick is going to talk about complete streets projects. And just wanted to remind everyone that you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask a question at any time, and we'll answer as many questions as we can after the individual presentations are finished. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Nick.
Good evening. I'm Nick Lepp with MetroPlan Orlando, and I'm going to go over some of those complete street projects Mary Ann mentioned earlier. The one I'd like to highlight first is the Corrine Drive study. As the video suggested for our tip, this high quality study was something that was done partnership between Orange County, City of Orlando, and MetroPlan to develop a plan for Corrine Drive to help address some of the safety and pedestrian needs of the corridor. So that resulted in a complete street, which included a trail on the north side, also a lane reduction to help slow and control some of the speeds that would be going on Corrine Drive. The study was completed in 2019, and now we've been able to fund the design in 23 and construction in fiscal year 24-25. Next slide, please. Another project we want to highlight is up in Seminole County, which is State Road 434. This originally was a widening project from 417 down to Oviedo, looking at taking that 2-lane road into a 4-lane road. But with right-of-way restrictions and environmental constraints, Seminole County went back with working with MetroPlan, and we developed a complete street study looking at roundabouts and how to accommodate that within the 2-lane footprint of that area. And this project, the study is complete and design will be started actually within this next year, starting in July. Project. And the third one I'd like to highlight is down in Osceola County, more specifically down in the Poinciana area. This is Marigold Avenue, which has been kind of a high-speed cut through for years. The county put together a design taking into account some of these intersections and adding roundabouts, which will also include sidewalks and be a big safety improvement to this corridor. And that's funded for construction in fiscal year 22 and 23. And from there, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. He's going to talk about trails and bicycle pedestrian facilities.
Thank you, Nick, and good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Wilson with MetroPlan Orlando. MetroPlan not only funds pedestrian and bicycle projects to provide access, mobility, and safety, but we also develop education and outreach programs to improve those modes. Next slide. Last year, we completed the first phase of our pedestrian and bicyclist safety action plans, in which we identified important corridors and strategies for safety improvements and key behavioral changes needed to reduce those crashes as well. This year, we're developing safety construction projects from a number of those corridors, and we're exploring ways to communicate why those behavioral changes are so important. Next slide. Next, I'm going to feature a few of the key trail projects in our area that are going to fill important gaps in our regional trail network. First off, in Orange County is the Lake County Loop Connector. This will connect the West Orange Trail to the Lake Apopka Loop Trail over right at Magnolia Park. And construction is scheduled for fiscal year 22-23. Next slide. The Little Econ Greenway has had a significant gap between the Pkwy Trail and the existing Little Econ Trail for quite some time. And we are scheduling construction of that project in 2024-25 that will connect from Cimarron to Forsyth Road and will include a trail overpass at Cimarron. Next. The Shingle Creek Regional Trail has a number of projects that will advance that corridor. The first two are in Orange County and will will be constructed in 2021 and 22, taking the trail from Destination Parkway down to Central Florida Parkway. And a third section in Osceola County will connect the Tapestry subdivision up to Osceola Parkway. Next slide. And then one other improvement to the regional system is putting stairs on the trail overpass for the Cross Seminole Trail. This is at the overpass over US 1792, just north of Longwood. And construction for that is scheduled for 2020 and 21. So those are just a few of the many pedestrian and bicyclist improvements in our TIP. Now I'm going to turn it over to Eric Hill and Laura Bauk. Please keep on putting your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll answer those shortly.
Good evening. I'm Eric Hill with MetroPlan Orlando, and I'm going to share with you just some of the projects that are in our TSMO operations. TSMO looks at using information, communication, and technology to improve mobility, but an underlining theme in TSMO operations is safety. In this tip, we have 37 projects that are TSMO projects. We have 29 in Orange County, 5 in Osceola County, and 5 in Seminole County, for an estimated amount of $64 million. Now, let me just identify some of the projects, or not some of the projects, but the level of investment that we are making in these three categories. Again, safety is an underlying theme. We have just over $7 million going towards safety projects. The next category, intersection, we have over $31 million going into intersection improvements. And many of these improvements have a safety component because a lot of crashes happen near or at intersections and involve more than just vehicles, but pedestrian and bicyclists. And then lastly, in our technology section, we have over $25 million program for technology. And technology looks at our traffic signals. It looks at how we collect data and share that data with our partners. And our big piece of this technology is a technology grant that we received a couple years ago from the Federal Highway Administration that looks at tying together pedestrian improvement, roadway improvements using technology, and using or developing a platform so that travelers can identify options, pay for their options, and then make the best trip that is best for them, but also reduces congestion. And with that, I will turn it over to Laura Bauk, who will talk a little bit about the traffic signal operations that we have underway.
Thank you, Eric. As you mentioned, I'm Laura Bauk, also with MetroPlan Orlando, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our traffic signal retiming program, which is one of our marquee programs under that TSMO umbrella. Since 2007, MetroPlan Orlando has consistently ranked the signal retiming program as one of our top priorities in the retiming and coordination of traffic signals as a way to mitigate congestion, to make our roadways more efficient, and also to improve air quality and safety. And so each year we work with our city and our county partners to identify which signals within the region need to be retimed, and then we implement new retiming plans for each of those corridors that are selected. We've seen overwhelming benefits from this program. And so just to illustrate a snapshot that illustrates the effectiveness of the program, I showed some of the stats from our program we completed last year in 2019. In that year, we retimed signals on 29 different corridors. And of those, we saw a travel time reduction on 25. And so for that year's program, we saw a benefit cost overall ratio of 14.1. Next slide, please. Looking at the signal retiming program that we have underway right now, we are retiming signals on 29 different corridors, as well as 9 standalone intersections. That graphic on the right side of the slide sort of shows you the general area where each of those retimings are going on. We are currently about 50% of the way through our retiming program this year, which is unusual. We usually wrap up our retiming programs at the end of June, which is the end of our fiscal year. But due to the coronavirus, some of our corridors are sort of on hold until school is back in session, and we anticipate wrapping those up in the fall. Now, looking at the retiming program that'll be in the first year of the TIP that we're actually talking about, which is fiscal year 2020-21, we have received requests for retiming projects on 32 separate corridors, and we'll be working with our partners over the coming months to identify how many of those we're able to fit into the budget that we have in the TIP. And now I'm going to turn the virtual podium back over to Nick so he can talk about the transit projects that we have in the TIP. And you'll have a few more minutes to put any more questions you have into the Q&A box. Nick.
Great, thank you. Now I'm just going to highlight some of the transit and bus and rail projects that we have within the TIP. And this is through partnering with Links, Central Florida Transit Authority, and then also our local governments. We have a project coming up where we'll be working with Orange and Osceola County. The first I'd like to talk about is the bus replacement plan that Links has going on. Currently, Links is running hybrid compressed natural gas vehicles, but there is a plan to start switching over that fleet from diesel to hybrid and CNG to make sure that there's a complete mixture of vehicles. And we're starting to look at more of those environmental concerns with just diesel fuel. Next slide. The Pine Hills Transfer Center, which is an essential location up in Pine Hills Road and Silver Star to facilitate people getting access to public transportation. This will have a center where multiple buses can sit for those transfers and make sure they're coordinated for people to get from and to their destinations. Next slide. Also, the Lake Nona Autonomous Shuttle, which is the first one here in Orange County, which is located down in Lake Nona. This is an autonomous beep shuttle that connects the town center with Laureate Park. And just to highlight, just over the past 6 months that it was in operation, it'll be starting back up again any day now. They had over 14,000 riders in just that short period of time. So it seems to be a very popular addition. Next slide. And then to let everybody know, we will be looking at the parking constraint problems that are happening in Meadowwoods, the Tupperware station, and the Poinciana station of SunRail. Right now, they are over capacity, so MetroPlan, along with Orange and Osceola County, will be leading a feasibility study to identify opportunities to expand that parking. And MetroPlan has also identified the funding within fiscal year 22 for design, and then construction in fiscal year 24, recognizing that this is a high priority project for transit. Slide.
Okay, well, at this point, I'm just going to real briefly talk about the next steps in the process of developing our new TIP. You see on the slide there, the schedule. Following our public meeting this evening, we'll be going through the review and approval process for our 4 advisory committees and our MetroPlan Orlando board. And the first group that will be meeting will be our Community Advisory Committee. They're meeting this coming Wednesday. And that group is made up of private citizens. Some of these represent local government jurisdictions, others represent special interest groups, but they all have an interest in transportation issues. Then on Thursday, we have our meeting of our Municipal Advisory Committee, and that group is mainly made up of the mayors of smaller municipalities in this region that are not directly represented on our board. Then our other 2 advisory committees both meet on Friday. The first one is the Transportation Systems Management and Operations Advisory Committee. That group is mainly made up of local traffic engineers that deal with TSMO type of issues. And then the Technical Advisory Committee is made up of local planners and engineers. And then this will be going to our board for final approval next Monday, June 29th. And then once the TIP has been adopted by our board, it has to be submitted to FDOT by mid-July. And after the TIP is adopted and submitted, it's never set in stone. You know, it's continually being amended as funding becomes available and new projects get funded or get moved up. That goes through the TIP amendment process, and that process continues throughout the year. So with that, I will turn it back over to Marianne Horn.
Thank you, Keith, and all our presenters. Now that you have heard about some of our project categories and what's on the horizon, we want to ask you about our vision. We told you earlier that the TIP is a 5-year plan that supports our 25-year vision. Again, you'll see a question pop up and some multiple choice answers on your screen, and you'll click to select your answer. Our 2045 plan, that's our 25-year vision, can accomplish many things. We have some areas of focus here, and we'd like for you to tell us which one is most important to you to allow you to get from point A to point B conveniently, to let you have some predictable travel times, so that you get to work at the same time every day, to be environmentally friendly and provide opportunities for physical activity, physical transportation, biking and walking, to have fewer traffic injuries and deaths than today, to really up that safety quotient, to include well-maintained, high-quality infrastructure that supports the economy. These are just some of the things that the 2045 plan can do. So we'd like to hear what you would think is the most important thing that it could do. We'll give you a minute or two here to click your answers. Got about half of you have answered. Try to get a few more. Okay, so it seems that this group is very interested in the 2045 plan being environmentally friendly and providing opportunities to be physically active. And of course, that goes along with our complete streets with the biking and walking. And then after that, safety, which is very important to us, and predictable travel times, which also help with safety. Okay, and thank you very much for that. Before we move to your questions, and thank you, we do have questions coming in and we are getting ready to answer them, but we do want to show you something that we promised, which is a short tutorial on how you can use our website to track projects that are most important to you. We've been refining this tool, and our senior planner and project manager, Alex Trauger, is going to explain how to use it, and this is a tool always available to you, so take a look.
Are you wondering which transportation projects are coming near you? Visit our web map to search for projects programmed in our 5-year Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. Here's a quick tutorial. The TIP web map has various dynamic search and summary features that will allow you to explore the Transportation Improvement Program based on your geographic or project-specific interests. As you are welcomed to the web map, you will be greeted by a blue pop-up window, as you can see here. Please read through and click OK to proceed. The toolbar at the upper right-hand side of the screen contains 4 options, but you can also simply zoom in using your map and pan around, select a project, one of the various colored lines, blue for federal and state projects, purple for toll-funded projects, and green lines for locally funded projects. Simply click the line of the project, and an information box will pop up displaying project details and phase cost information. Again, at the upper right-hand side of the screen, we have 4 search and filter options. The first is our search and sort. This function will allow you to search by predetermined locations, like municipal boundaries, commission districts, or you can even type in your home or work address to see what's happening near you. We also have a buffer function, which will basically search within 5 miles or 1 mile, whatever you set within that predetermined location. Also located within this function is the advanced search, where you can search by project types, by work description, a specific corridor, the agency conducting the work, or search by FDOT's financial management number. For example, if you're interested in bicycle pedestrian projects, you could search by project type, click the drop-down menu, and select bike ped. You could also, if you're interested in bicycle and pedestrian projects, you could look at the work description and search for the very specific project type, like, is it a trail or a bike path? Or are we adding lighting to a specific roadway? Similarly, if you're looking at intersection projects or widening projects, that information can be searched specifically using this drop-down menu within our work description. The next function is our information summary tab. By clicking this summary, you will provide a summary or quantitative overview of the total number of projects that are located in the Transportation Improvement Program. It's important to note that this is a dynamic search function. And what I mean by saying that is, as you zoom in and out of the map, you can see that the tool is actually recalculating based on what is visible in the map area. This function also has two chart options, project funding by source and number of active projects. Let's take a look at the number of active projects. Simply click the button there, select apply, and this is summarizing all active transportation projects within the Transportation Improvement Program. As you can see based on the chart, there's 190 federal and state funded transportation projects. That makes up about 50% of all active projects. As you can see, as I hover over the graph, the map actually highlights those particular projects. So these are locally funded projects, toll funded projects, federal and state funded projects. The third tab is our maps and measure function. This has a variety of base map options. We currently use a light gray topography as you can currently displayed, but you can select one like an aerial or a hybrid or a road map to your liking. This function also has different layers that can be toggled on and off using the buttons here. We also have a measurement option where you can measure area, distance, or length, or you can also plot location using longitude and latitude if interested. The last function at the top right of the screen is our about information. This provides a little more detail about the Transportation Improvement Program web map, contact information if you have any questions, as well as providing a direct link to our official Transportation Improvement Program document located on the MetroPlan Orlando website. Our 5-year plan is a living document, so the TIP web map gets updated with project information throughout the year. Check back with us anytime you're curious about a project or the entire work program.
Thank you, Alex. And again, that tool is available on our website all the time, and it's a place where you may be able to answer some of your own questions or get some more information. But now it is time for your questions. And as you know, as you have been doing it, you can submit them with the Q&A button. And after the Q&A, we will move on to public comment. Looks like we've got, we will answer as many as we can. We probably have about 15 plus minutes here, so we'll get started. First of all, we had a number of questions about Edgewater Drive. About how it's moving forward, why its completion years seem to be behind Corrine Drive, although it was started earlier, and also about the streetscape project that accompanies it and how that is moving forward. So I think I'm going to ask Nick Lepp to take over on that one.
Certainly. Edgewater Drive is still within our Transportation Improvement Program. The design is funded for fiscal year 21-22, with construction coming in fiscal year 23-24. This was added in last year, remains in the plan, and we're still working with the City of Orlando to advance this project and make sure the design and construction goes on schedule.
We have another question about the Corrine Drive project itself, and to clarify that it will start in 24-25. Is that correct, Nick?
That's what we have scheduled for when the construction is going to start. So fiscal year 24-25, our fiscal year runs from July 1 through June 30th. So that means project should start July of 2023. The anticipated construction will have to wait until after design to see how long it will take. but the funding itself is in that fiscal year and will be started then.
Thank you. We have a question about bicycle and pedestrian bridges. The questioner wonders if there is a minimum distance between two bridges. For example, there is one across East State Road 434 intersection with Michael Blake Boulevard. And would it be possible to have one at State Road 434 at Tuscaloosa Road in the city of Winter Springs? Is that spacing okay? Keith, do you want to take this one, or do you want to ask someone else too?
As far as the spacing, I'm not sure about the minimum requirements on that. I don't know if anyone from FDOT wants to respond to that, or Mike, if you have any insight on that.
No, there's no minimum spacing for overpasses, but with the size of the investment of a pedestrian overpass, it's something that you really want to look at it in depth to ensure that it's warranted, that it would be used, that it would be a good investment.
Okay, we have a question about Powers Drive in Pine Hills. The questioner wants to know, with all the growth in Pine Hills, where is Powers Drive at Silver Star Road in a plan to address safety concerns? Keith?
Well, that might be a question for Orange County staff, or I don't know, Nick, do you have any?
I don't have any specifics on the Powers Drive and Silver Star, but I can tell the audience that the intersection of Silver Star and Hiawassee, and also the intersection of Pine Hills and Hiawassee, are scheduled for funding in our project priority list currently that's going in front of the board to be added into the next tip. As Keith explained, that project priority list is that bridge gap to get into the transportation improvement program. But as for specifics on Powers, either City of Orlando or Orange County, I'm not sure if you have any plans for that.
Powers is outside the City of Orlando.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of any project in looking at the intersection, but certainly we'll add it to our list and see if what the situation is and if we can come up with any improvements.
Okay, thank you. That was Mr. Nastasi from Orange County. We have another question about Edgewater, and panelists, you can correct me if we got this one answered earlier, but this questioner wants to know, have we coordinated the traffic signals along Edgewater Drive, timing on the lights, particularly interested around Princeton, Smith, Vassar? Has
Marian,
Laura, you can tell us. Yeah.
Thanks, Marian. I ended up answering it in the written comments actually, but Edgewater is actually getting retimed this year from Maury Road down to Dartmouth. So I anticipate you'll be seeing the actual retiming implemented once we pick that back up in the fall when school is in session. So stay tuned.
Okay. Let's move to Seminole County. I have a questioner here who wants to know, is the Seminole-Wekiva bike trail already connected to the West Orange Trail, or is that something that can be done, or is it something that's coming?
Mike, is that something you could respond to?
Sure. Yes, that actually is in the works. It's part of the Coast to Coast Trail, and there are state SunRail funds programmed for that. Nick, do you recall what the programming year is on that?
I do not recall that, but we would be happy to put that in responses after this as we look up the dates for those. Yes.
Okay. We have a question about SunRail. Is anyone looking at adding or rescheduling SunRail trains to leave downtown Orlando southbound any later than 9:05 p.m.? There currently is a 10:30 p.m. northbound train. It's more traffic for southbound than northbound. And why do we not have a later southbound train?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate for FDOT. I don't know, Rakenya, you might need to check on that and get back with us, I guess.
Yes, I'll definitely jot that down and see if I can find an answer directly from SunRail representative.
Okay, thank you. And here's a question, another train question. This one is about Brightline. Since the Brightline rail system by Virgin is working on expanding to MCO, are there plans to expand SunRail to connect the two rail systems?
Well, I'll start off with, there is the plan for SunRail Phase 3, which would eventually run from the SunRail main line near the Meadowwood station over to Orlando International Airport. That could hook into the Brightline system as well, but that extension is not funded at this point. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on that.
I'll just say it's in one of our top priorities as a connection, understanding that that's a critical gap for our region, which the study has been completed. There is just, there's not enough funding for the construction and operations just yet.
Okay, thank you. Here's a question about roads. Traffic research commonly shows that widening roads or adding capacity leads to increased use, that it doesn't relieve traffic. So why do we continue to widen roads?
Marion, I'll jump in and answer that question. That's correct, and it's normally referred to as induced traffic. And so most of the congestion, the research also shows, is not caused by lack of capacity, but events, incidents, weather, and poor signal timing. And it is through our TISMO program that we are trying to address these challenges. And while TISMO will provide some alternatives, at some point we do have to increase capacity if we are going to continue to use vehicles as our main form of travel. But the questioner is correct. Induced traffic does occur as you add more capacity, more and more cars will show up. But again, we're addressing that through our TISMO program.
And I'll also just, go ahead, Keith.
Well, I was just going to add that, in the last, within the last 5 to 10 years or so, we've kind of changed our emphasis on, in our long-range transportation plan and our prioritized project list on strictly widening roads or, adding lanes. And we've placed more emphasis recently on complete streets type projects that Nick talked about earlier. So that we're trying to, find ways to improve traffic flow and safety and so on within existing capacity without having to add lanes. So.
Keith, you said everything I was going to say, so.
Perfect. Here's another question about bikeways. And I'm not sure if the questioner means bike paths here, but it asks, is there any bikeways planned for the Altamont-Maitland area?
A couple that come off the top of my head was there's one planned for an extension of the Sandspur route, which includes the trail overpass or the pedestrian bike overpass over I-4, continuing westward over to 434. I know Altamont also has a neighborhood path in the works. Aside from that, I'm sure there's a number of other things going on, but those are a couple that are on the top of my head.
And I could add on also, I know the county is doing a feasibility study for some possible overpasses at 436 and 434 in Altamont. That's on the west side. And Maitland also is looking at a complete street study, which would have enhanced trail and sidewalks on Maitland Ave going north-south there through Maitland.
Okay, thank you. Here's a question about Orange Avenue. what happened to the Orange Avenue multimodal improvements in the Pine Castle area near Sand Lake SunRail station? 2 years ago, the project was ranked third, then ninth, now 10th on priorities. Will it get funded? Will it be bumped?
Actually, no. So right now, the funding for the section from Sand Lake North to Mandalay Road, going through the split, is being constructed with the resurfacing project that the Department of Transportation will be letting and starting in the next year or two, I believe. So that section and those complete street elements will be constructed along that time. The remaining section north going all the way to Holden and Gatlin requires some right-of-way. So that is still on the priority list as we're looking to advance that to get into design, but we understand that there's some significant right-of-way impacts that will be needed before construction can be done.
Okay. Thank you. Another SunRail question, one that we often hear when we go out into the community to talk to groups. And the questioner wants to know, when will we start SunRail service on weekends and expanded locations in Orange County? Do we know the answer to that?
No, we
I don't think we do.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to money. I mean, there's just not the available funding right now to, and you know, based on the current ridership to warrant that. But hopefully, you know, we'll be able to do that eventually. But at the present time, that's just not the ridership.
We do hear that a lot. I think that's something that everyone is in favor of, but we do not yet have a way to make that happen. This questioner wants to know, how do I obtain a list of the 29 corridors that were discussed in the signal retiming project? Did we get the list to this questioner? Laura, did you already do that? I'm sorry.
Eric answered it, but the short answer is you can contact me.
I'm glad to give you the list. Thank you. Questioner wants to know about the status of widening State Road 50 from Avalon Park Boulevard to Chuluota Road.
Yes, that's currently funded for construction in fiscal year 2023-24 in our new TIPs.
That's in the TIP. A questioner wants to know, it says, you did mention the environment as one of our goals long term, and says, I can't see a major improvement in public transportation options, which would seem to be friendly to the environment. Can you explain why it's not there? If environment is our goal, the questioner feels that maybe we're overlooking an obvious way to do that through expanded transit.
I will defer that to Tamika, I guess. Probably be the...
So what we're doing as it relates to the environment is Lynx has a phased implementation plan for transitioning our diesel and gasoline and compressed natural gas to electric vehicles in the future. And so this is contingent upon our current contracts with No Petro, which we have a 20-year contract for compressed natural gas. And we're in the 5th year of that contract. So what that means is Lynx will continue to purchase CNG vehicles in accordance with that contract. However, we are simultaneously purchasing and entering into the purchase of electric vehicles, which, for reference, at last month's sessions or earlier this month, we had several presentations for all of the committees with regard to what the phase plan is, and it was on one of the slides that Nick shared this evening. Additionally, we're continuing to work with our funding partners to identify opportunities to leverage investments that they make and plans that they will develop as it relates to incorporating more sustainable practices as it relates to public transit. So I think to answer the question, we are doing it. We're doing it in a phased way, and it does impact the environment in a positive way. And we're transitioning, as many public transit agencies are doing nationally.
I would also like to add that there's many agencies, pretty much all the agencies that I work with, that sustainability is one of the main focuses in their work plans. At the Central Florida Expressway Authority, where I work, sustainability is one of the main goals in our latest work plan, and it was also one of our goals in our last work plan. we're doing many things, within our facilities to incorporate and look for opportunities for sustainable practices. Right now, we have a bunch of projects in our work plan to do solar panel fields to help offset some of the energy costs within our system. We're also looking at accreditation for different projects, new projects, to go through the Sustainable Infrastructure Institute. And by doing so, that organization helps you identify sustainability opportunities within your system. It may be looking for construction materials that are recycled, or looking for different methods, anything that you can do to offset the impacts of our growing transportation system in Central Florida.
Thanks, Jameson. We got another environmentally related question here, and this one is around electric vehicles. With the increasing number of electric vehicles, the questioner wonders, are there plans to install more charging stations for them? Anybody got a fix on that one?
Well, I can tell you that it's something that we're considering in our 25-year vision plan. So as we're looking at the future, we're looking at a bunch of different possible scenarios. One of it could be an advanced implementation of the electrification of vehicles, which would require those kind of facilities and charging stations. Others also include possibly a disruptor scenario, something that we're experiencing right now, which may take it a little bit longer for the electrification of vehicles to reach the fleet. So those are two things we're looking at, along with other scenarios, as we're developing that long-range plan or the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for 2045.
Okay, thanks. And then we have a question about transit. And the questioner wants to know, it's sort of a chicken and an egg question, if SunRail and Lynx ran more frequently with more connectivity, wouldn't the travel times be more efficient? Wouldn't this be more attractive to riders? And wouldn't our ridership then go up? And I think the question is, how do we get that to happen and increase the presence of transit in our community?
I'll start off. We agree. I think everyone on the panel agrees. We have to work within the budget constraints that our funding partners are facing. And the reality is, many of us recognize the value, the environmental benefits of more use of public transit, to include SunRail and other alternative modes. However, we have to balance that with the other priorities of our region. And that's the purpose of this exercise, to ensure that we identify all of the alternatives and all of the tools in our toolkit where we can leverage the investment by partnering with all of the represented agencies on this line and working through MetroPlan to make sure what we're doing is realistic, the plans that we have are talking to one another, and that we can get the biggest bang for our buck. So I think during this project priorities period, during the next 5 years, the region is going to see more comprehensive collaborative efforts, because nationally there is a finite amount of funds for transit, for other types of transportation investments. And this is part of that process. So we're continuing to identify opportunities to tweak public transit service, to enhance the schedules, but we're also doing it within the context of transitioning SunRail to the region in the coming years. And those are all the priorities that we all have. We all would love a stream of funds to just do more frequent service, and we're getting there. I think if we look where we were 10 years ago and the service that we do provide with the budgets that we have, we're providing a lot of public transit service. So it's a process, and we're moving in the right direction.
Great. Anything to add? Rakenya, Nick?
I think that was sufficiently answered.
It was a good answer.
No, it was definitely a comprehensive answer, and it's always an answer. I mean, it's always a question when you start to talk about transportation, but we definitely have to work within the constraints of what our budgets will allow, and also what our partners are able to be, be able to contribute as well. So thank you, Tamika. Very comprehensive answer.
Yes. And so I think we have now addressed all the questions that were before us. You can continue if you think of a question to put that in the question box, and we will answer those later. We will be able to get back to you later because we collected your registration info on the way in. But now we are at the time for public comments. And this is where you can register an opinion that will be relayed to the MetroPlan Orlando board and become part of the record. Now, to make a public comment, please use the raise hand function, which I think you can see there on your toolbar. It's at the bottom of the screen. If you are joining us on the phone without video, you can use *9 to do that, and it will raise your virtual hand. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. Please accept the unmute prompt from the host and you will be able to make your comment. We would like for you to state your name and your contact information for the record. Keep your comment to 2 minutes, please. We will be timing them. And if you're not ready to make your comment now, you don't want to make it in this forum, or you don't want to limit it to 2 minutes, we will receive written comments through the end of the week, and we have information there on how you can do that through our comment@metroplanorlando.org email box, or we will also accept comments via the good old U.S. Postal Service. Now, do we have members of the public who are ready to speak? I see one hand raised, and so I think we'll call on Ms. Schultz. Oops. Cynthia, are you able to unmute Ms. Schultz?
I sent her the prompt. Ms. Schultz, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
We do.
Okay, cool. My question is related on my public. Okay, so you first want my name. It's Evie Schultz. I live in Audubon Park, and I'm definitely interested in what's going on with Corrine. So is there like another update session for the neighborhood here, or is this the session that we are moving now forward with this project? What is the next step? That's my question.
The next step is starting the design for what came out of the plan. So the results and the recommendations that came out of the plan will be going forward into the more detailed design phase, making sure that we have everything that we can fit within the right of way, and it's designed properly for public to travel. And then after that, when that's complete, it'll move right into construction. And with both phases funded, it should remain on schedule for the construction to start in fiscal year 24-25.
Okay, is there an official information for the public, or is it just going through a forum like this, or we check everything on your website?
The plan is still up on our website, but each phase of the project, so once the design gets started, there will be a couple public meetings for public to offer their offer their opinions and see what's going on. So as that gets going, you should start seeing some public notices on your opportunity to comment on the design for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Did you have a public comment, or were you just asking the question?
No, for me, it was just like, what is the next step?
Okay, so that was a question. And this time we are trying to reach out to people who have public comments to make first, and then if people have questions, we can circle back around. So I see another hand up, and this is Corey Staffield has a hand up.
Hey there, my name is Corey Staffield from Altamont Springs. 2 comments. Just an observation that I've noticed from traveling abroad in Gothenburg, Sweden. I noticed that a lot of the multimodal sources of transportation within that outer city region, they had one application that linked all these different modes together, whether it was tram or boat or whatever. And I was wondering if, or actually I shouldn't ask a question, but just wanted to keep that in mind, that it'd be something good to look at if keeping links connected to SunRail and all these other multi-modes on one app. Second comment, I think the biggest thing that I wanted to note was like getting the trails connected to the rails, getting trails connected to the trails, which I guess is all in the plan, but I just wanted to note that that's something of great importance for someone who uses a lot of these things.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Staffield. And I do not at this point see any more hands raised for public comment. Do we have any people in our audience who want to make a public comment at this time? And of course, you can still send us a written comment, and we would love to have a written comment. I might add that if you are in the audience and you're having a difficulty finding that raise your hand feature, if that's the problem, you can write us a note either in the Q&A or in the chat box, and we will make sure that you do get a chance to speak. Give you a minute there to reach out if you want to make a comment, because we always welcome your comments. I want to thank you for all your questions, because I have to tell you, one of our biggest nightmares when we started out here was like, what if nobody asks a question? Well, no problem. Thank you very much for that. And like I said, you can continue to ask questions. If we have any more, you can put them in the Q&A, because I'm not seeing any more hands raised for public comment at the moment. So I think no more public comments. Are there any more questions? Anybody like to submit a question? Oh, Leilani tells me my time is up for making a comment. Okay, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you have questions that weren't addressed here, or you want more information, do not hesitate to reach out to us. This meeting video will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can review any parts of it if you want to, and you can contact us. Here are our email addresses. You can contact any one of us or all of us. After this meeting, you will, if you register for this webinar, you will get an email, and that will give you some more information and links to the TIP and ways that you can follow up after this. And while I was making that announcement, we did have another question come in. And this one is a question that we hear out in the community a lot. And it says, can you address some of the funding challenges that may result from COVID-19? What do you think, Keith? Can we?
I'll start it out. I don't know that we can really address it right now in terms of long-term impacts. I mean, obviously, with the decline in the economy, that cuts down on tax revenues and so on. It's also affecting ridership on SunRail and links and that sort of thing, that people are not comfortable riding transit or riding SunRail as they used to be. It has given FDOT the opportunity to speed up some of their projects, such as the I-4 Ultimate project, due to the decline in traffic. But as far as any long-term impacts, I don't know that we can really answer that right now.
Is there anybody else who wants to weigh in on that? Thank you for that, Keith. I think the answer to that may be come back to next year's Transportation Improvement Program discussion, and we will know more at that time. Okay, I think we may be finished for this evening, but remember, you can always reach out to us. You can always make a comment. We appreciate your taking time to join us. We really do. We look forward to seeing you in the future, and please let us know if there's anything else we can do to help you learn more about our transportation system here in Central Florida. Thank you, and good evening.